the U.S. has increased the supply of this market from 15 trillion to 45 trillion. It's an increase of 300%. In each one of those years, the market has hit a new 240-year high. Since 2007, the year the current crisis began, the 6 biggest governments in the world have been increasing the supply between 83 and 362% in this market, and the price continues to hit multi-hundred-year highs. What is this market class? The bond market, the sovereign bond market, the gilt market here in the UK.
Yesterday, the British government borrowed money from international investors at record low levels, saving taxpayers millions of pounds. Does he agree with me this is more evidence our economic plans are working?
My honourable friend makes a good point, which is because of the fact we have a credible plan to get on top of debt, to get on top of deficit, to show how we'll pay our way in the world, we have record low interest rates which were described by the Shadow Chancellor as the key.
And this is a bubble of fear. People have been piling into bonds out of fear, and they've been driving the prices to levels not unlike tulip bulbs, the South Sea bubble, and any other historic, manic, crazy bubble in the past. So what is the smart money doing in the face of this bubble? Well, what are the central banks doing for the first time in 30 years since 2009? They're buying gold. So let's look at the price of gold, because people say, oh, that's in a bubble. Well, during the 5 years when the supply of the government bonds increased by hundreds of percentage points around the world, by 25 trillion in the U.S., and substantially more around the world, the price of the supply of gold has moved up 8%. You can print bonds, you can print money, you can't print gold. So far in 2012, the global central banks have bought 273 tons of gold, with that number exceeded to be double by the end of the year. You know, a lot of people say that there's my show. They bring up this phrase propaganda. And I say, yes, there is propaganda. It's max propaganda. These countries are buying gold. Why do you think they're buying gold? There's an axis of max. And these countries are buying gold. Russia increasing their gold every single month. India buying gold. Of course, the UK, no gold. But the biggest player in all this, of course, is China, because they've got $3 trillion in reserves, over $1 trillion in US dollars. In 2003, they had 600 tons of gold. In 2009, they had 1,000 tons of gold. And we know, and I can tell you, that around the world, the Chinese government, through Hong Kong, have been importing hundreds and hundreds of tons of gold. The announcement will come very shortly that China has gone from 1,000 tons of gold to possibly over 3,000 tons of gold, possibly more than Germany, making them the #2 gold reserve in the world. And they're doing this because they know that the debt bubble that has been built around the world for the past 30 years is about to pop, and it's about to pop in epic proportions. They're buying gold because they don't trust each other. You've got all the major currencies engaged in a currency war where they're all trying to devalue their currencies simultaneously. We've had 260 stimulus programs by banks around the world so far in 2012, including QE3 in the U.S. So, I come to my predictions. It's becoming clear that all these governments are in the same boat. They're all printing at the same time. The bonds are at unbelievably high bubble-like levels, and we're going to see a crash in sovereign debt market. And by crash, I mean values crashing 75% or more from their current levels. Those who own a portfolio of bonds should be aware that they are tap dancing on the edge of a cliff. Gold prices and silver, of course, have been, the bull market hasn't even started based on the coming tsunami of debt collapse that's in the works. So that is my presentation. The UK is the heart of fraud around the world. If there's nothing to protect here, unless you want to have a complete culture of fraud. And this is, again, why we have relocated our show from Paris to London, because we want a front row seat on the collapse. We want to bring it to you from the trenches, in real time, so we can all, watch this as it unfolds on our show, Keiser Report, because the next 18 months are going to be, in my opinion, a spectacular collapse here and in the world, but particularly here because this country, thanks to Gordon Brown, basically gave away its sovereignty back in the year 1999 to 2002. It's an error that will live forever as the day Britain lost its sovereignty. Thank you.
Wow. Follow that. I think I'm probably speaking for most people in here when I say we don't have any bonds. We don't have any stocks. And the only gold we've got is in our wedding rings or a few bits of jewelry in the wife's jewelry box. We don't even have much cash. So why should we care? Why should we care about this coming collapse? Will it affect us, and how will it affect us?
Well, George, the most immediate experience people have with the bond market, I would say, would be with their pension accounts. And the pension accounts are being raided. The pension accounts who need a certain amount of minimum interest payments to be viable for the life of the pension is being destroyed with a program called quantitative easing. And the program forces interest down to near 0% as a way to make it cheaper for banks to borrow to speculate. So the pensioners are getting their money stolen. People in this country, if you have a parent, you know that their income is down sharply on their pension accounts. That puts pressure on you to make up for that income. Secondly, as I mentioned earlier, the insurance industry. The insurance industry is extremely vulnerable to 0% interest rates. Thirdly, 0% interest rates force companies to hedge their exposure to the inflation that comes when you drive interest rates lower and you flood the markets with cash, and that drives energy prices higher and food prices higher. So you're paying for it at the pump. You're paying for it when the price of food goes up. You know, the education prices are going up. There's real inflation in this country. It's not the official government-related number of whatever it might be on a daily basis in the 2% or so. If you include these off-balance sheet items, it's 7, 8, 9%. Who's paying for that inflation? You are. And why is that inflation occurring? Because of 0% interest rates to satisfy the bond market, to satisfy the bond speculators. So it's not about owning bond stocks or gold. It's about being victimized by a system that has destroyed labor, destroyed wages, destroyed the basic stuff of a sustainable economy and replaced it with a financialized economy. And that's been growing for 30 years, thanks, of course, to the Thatcher-Reagan revolution. And it's been growing for 30 years. So you have now a situation where over 10% of the economy here in Britain officially is the financial sector. But if you take in the contingent liabilities in housing and insurance, it's a much higher number. That's very unhealthy. It's a parasite. It's like having a tapeworm that suddenly takes over your body and destroys you. It's a financial cancer. The solution using monetary theory is to raise interest rates. But the politicians will say, well, that'll kill the housing market. That'll kill the economy. Yeah, it will for about a year or two. But then you can grow again in a sustainable way. But this way you have what's now called zombie companies. It was just reported that 10% of all companies, 160,000 companies in this country, are zombie companies. They can't make enough money to pay down their debt. They can only make enough money to pay the interest on the debt. They're the walking dead. They're zombies. And that's this economy is at a permanent stagnation, point of stagnation, because of these issues that we're talking about. So the bond market is the backbone of the economy, and the fact that it's being destroyed in the way that it's being destroyed, you pay for it in those 5 or 6 ways that I just iterated.
Who wants to ask the second question? Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for your speech. I find it a little bit difficult to understand why the level of gold in Britain is so low. I mean, bearing in mind that Britain was an empire and colonized quite a lot of countries, including, say, the Gold Coast. I mean, why do you think the level of gold is this low?
The level of gold, closer to 700 tons before Gordon Brown got to it, was not a horrible position to be in. It put Britain at least in the top 10 or so of gold owners in the world. Russia has about 1,000 tons. China has over 1,000, so having 700 tons is not the worst position to be in. But since the sale of the gold, these other countries, particularly in the last 5 years, have been aggressively adding to their gold because they realize that there is a paper apocalypse coming, and you don't want to go to a gunfight with a knife. You don't want to go to the bargaining table without any gold. So Britain has this incredibly low concentration of gold, and they should have been buying gold. It's similar to Britain had the North Sea oil, which was a great GDP booster for years. Are they like Norway, where they put the profits into a sovereign wealth fund so that they protect the citizens for decades and generations? No, they squandered it in something called the housing bubble. So now the North Sea oil is running down, and there's no money there either. The stewards economically of the country have done a very, very poor job.
Thank you.
Yes, gentleman in the beard. Yeah, no, yes, you, sir. In the middle there, right in the middle, right in front of me, yes.
Are you telling us that we can't trust the British government? For 800 years we've been telling us that.
Go on. No, I was going to say, let's take 2 or 3.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of people. Yes, the gentleman next to him.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Keiser, Mr. Galloway. Thank you for this. I'm a local government employee. What should I do? And what should I do about my pension contributions? So is there any point in me making monthly payments? Now, of course, I'm not asking, you can't give me financial advice, I understand that, but generally.
Well, the first step is, I think, for everyone in the room to maybe have a little adjustment in their thinking. Because in this country and in most countries, the media is not doing a very good job. You end up seeing a very narrow perspective of what's making the economy work and what people are doing. So if nothing else, I would hope you leave here tonight and start asking yourself some serious questions about what's really going on in this economy, and then from there, bring it down to your personal situation. There are some risks that I don't think are being adequately just talked about for folks in this economy and in other economies. And there are things that you might want to consider